Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another speed build inspired by the Enchanted by Nature EP. We are back in the world of Innisgreen in the Everdew region where we're building a Tudor-style pub on the watering hole, which I thought was quite fitting considering that we are actually creating a fully fledged watering hole. Now, I wanted to do it in a Tudor style based on a few reference images I was working from, and I came across this really incredible, I think it was an illustration, I don't think it was a real build, that had a moat running through it with a tower and an adjoining kind of room between two buildings. So I definitely wanted to recreate that. But in terms of color schemes and everything, I kind of mixed it up with the Get Together pack, which really came in use for this speed build, and of course the new Enchanted by Nature. But you can just see here I'm making those Tudor references apparent with that really beautiful panelled wood on both the roofline, and I've created this secondary window box just to add a bit of extra detail to what will be quite a higgledy-piggledy style build. Now, I loved this lot. It's really beautiful. It's overlooking that gigantic willow. I think it's a willow at least, that contains the treehouse kind of build. So I just wanted to build something that had a beautiful vista and also something that felt a little bit more enchanted, you could say. My last build was that way inclined, but a little bit more realistic. And I noticed with this EP, it came with that curved bar, which has like a water fountain animation. You can just see it there to the left of the screen. Made sure to pull that out just for reference. And that was really inspiration for this build. Initially, I was going to build maybe like a cave inspired pub, but after a bit of research, as I said, I came upon kind of a Tudor style build and I just thought it fit into this world. Now, I mainly used a lot of the get together items. The stained glass windows came in handy. I did once use some from the new pack, but I just thought for this style build, these swatches worked in harmony with the color scheme I was going for. I'm just creating another wing here as well, off to the side. I was kind of using that reference image just as a basis, but then just went a bit wild with my creativity, and especially when you get a reference image and it's only the front facade, you can really do anything you want for the back. So definitely made that up on the spot, but it just took a lot of trial and error, really expanding and adjusting the size of rooms and things just to get the right balance. I really love that stone swatch. I've used it actually for Henford Manor from the Castle Estate kit, I think it's called. And I love the different tonal variations. Really adds to the realism of a build, I think, especially when you're trying to create more historical or older looking buildings. Now, I have made this build a space for fairies as part of one of the traits. I've also gave it a lot type of spooky, so I think it'd be kind of cool that it's haunted. Imagine this is a very old tavern that's been around for centuries. I was actually really inspired by the Poisoned Apple pub from Shrek. I love that film, and I love how all the villains reside in that pub. So it's kind of something I had in mind, even if I did build it for fairies and gnomes alike. But I'm just adding, just carrying through that Tudor paneling here for the front. I was playing around with the windows to get the balance right, and I thought that bay window with the stained glass was really pretty. So made that apparent on the front facade. I also actually did use the new roof tiles from the pack in that burnt orangey red shade, which I thought was really nice contrast to an otherwise kind of neutral palette. Just struggling here as well for the window, the roof windows, the small roof windows. I did going for, I think, a base game in a grey, so it's all in kind of harmony. Just shifting that window box down as well. just thought it looked a little bit too top heavy when I was looking from afar. And then I did come across another get together window with the stained glass, but it only accommodated a medium wall height. So decided to resize the building for the center section. Skipping ahead to the foundation and the stairs. Again, use the same swatches from the Enchanted by Nature pack. Really love that mossy stone texture. Adds a lot to the age of this build. I've not used this swatch yet with the kind of dark olive green moss to it, so thought it was a nice opportunity to use it here. Here I am adding the central section, which will connect the tavern with the tower. Just mirroring the same roof line. And I really liked how this came out, especially with the contrast of that Tudor paneling. I'm just mapping out the tower here as well. I nearly made the mistake of just going freestyle and building this room without the roof line, but I remembered to place one down. I think this is a good trick. Sometimes if you struggle, or maybe not if you struggle, if you just like to experiment a little bit with room shapes, just placing down the roof line first, just so you know for sure that it will fit a circular or hexagonal roof. And carried through that really beautiful stone swatch. Changed up the variations so it looked realistic. And I think we did the double windows from the Get Together pack for this. I was testing out windows with shutters, but in the end went for these ones, so everything worked in harmony. I think it looks really interesting, the shape, adding a bit of dimension. Something I usually don't do as well is doing a connecting building between two separate buildings, so I thought it turned out really nicely. Here I'm just playing around. I think I just wanted to add a bit of an extra bump out, so the corbels made sense where the support was for this walkway. I think these are from the base game, but I could be wrong. I did make sure to use the corbels from the EP, Enchanted by Nature EP, for the front door. So at least there's a bit of an element from the new pack there. Here I am just placing the bar to make sure it fit, and it didn't, so I extended out the room. Just didn't want it to be too much of a squeeze. I did want it to be cozy, but not that cozy. And I just had to rearrange the roof line. But I cut that out because it took me forever and a day to figure that out. Adding more detail to the back with some extra window boxes, corbels. I do actually change that bay window at the back, I think, because we add some ivy there from the pack. Yeah, really came together nicely. Once I really adjusted the front facade down, it did come together. But I think the initial exterior took me about an hour and a half, but then the interiors did come nicely together. Using the Castle Estate Kit windows, just placing them sporadically around this tower, or turret, I guess you could say. And you'll see once we get to it, adding the ivy, I climbed it up the tower and it looks, in my opinion, very beautiful. Just making sure to add those cross windows as well in the roof line. Here we are, making sense of the terrain, creating a kind of moat pond area. I did take a lot of time to perfect this. I did cut a majority of it out, but I did want it to feel really deep and not just a shallow lake area. So just bring up the water here. Thank God we have those water swatches as well. They really made this lake area look... Oh, I guess I said lake and moat. I don't really know what you would call it. But yeah, I just decided to use that mossy kind of water texture. Now this bottom room is unusable, but I just thought it was kind of a nice detail, as if potentially this walkway was there originally, and then it kind of got submerged over time with water. Just added to the magical fantasy of it. And I really did definitely want to use that water wheel for a bit of, you know, in-game motion, some can say. Here I am just adding the ivy from Enchanted by Nature all around the turret. I finally got to use it in my favourite swatch, which is this kind of light greeny, pale green with a orange flower. Very pretty. I've actually used this. I'm creating a legacy house away from my channel, just for myself. And I've used this on a big estate house and it's so stunning. I'm so glad we have this in the game now. And I encourage the Sims team to add even more kind of wall foliage decals. So useful for adding some realism and detail to buildings, especially for this as well. I don't think I'd be able to achieve this with just the cottage living pieces, because they're slightly too large. I think in particular that smallest piece is very useful, and I've had a lot of fun just changing, just experimenting with the different variations of how to place it and making it look as least copy and paste as possible. But yeah, I just spent a lot of time on this area. I kind of skip through large portions of it, otherwise we would just watch the entire video of me adding ivy to a wall. But I really enjoyed the effect that it gave. Also skipped a little bit ahead to adding some landscaping to the water. Used a mixture of heather and thistle, some reeds, some kind of like greener, bushy boys, but kept the palette very restrained. I don't know how realistic having thistle submerged into water is, but I thought it looked really nice. I did a bit of a highlight colour here and there, and I really took my time landscaping this area. It's inspired by the colours of the ivy, so I brought out this base game bush from Live Edit and just made sure to sink it down where it was appropriate. You can see there as well, I've also added some wildlife, so we've got some dragonflies, some swans, some white ducks, and some fireflies, I think, which are really pretty in game. Really adds to that magical element of it being in this enchanted world. But yeah, I really enjoy landscaping and I find it very calming. But when it comes to a speed build, I don't know how long I could keep in a video before you guys get bored. Just adding a few extra details here, like a log, some stones from the new pack. And I also wanted to add a bit of depth, so included this darker kind of autumnal coloured bush. Really inspiring actually, because I wanted to get into that season, my favourite season, and start building some autumnal inspired builds. Adding some terrain paint here, decided to go for this warm reddish brown stone, so it tied nicely in with the wall swatch that we had. Just feathering it around the front entrance, and decided to use this pebbled grass as a contrast to soften the edges. It really came out very nicely. Now, adding a bit of exterior lighting, decided to use the Enchanted by Nature wall lamp. Just one though, thought two was a bit overkill. You can see I've added some signage as well. From, I think that's from Get Together. I think that pack in general was very useful for a kind of Tudor inspired build, and I'd like to see more packs that have that kind of aesthetic. Maybe not, it doesn't have to be Tudor, but something that's kind of more set in a time frame. Decided to create a walled beer garden. Just make use of the view from across the river area. I initially added some stone here, but I decided to change it out for a swatch from the Enchanted by Nature kit, which is kind of a pebbled, mossy stone, which looks much better than the one I added here. Adding a front entrance to the beer garden as well. I like how the path winds around the build, so you get a real like 360 experience. There's a swatch. I think it looks nice. Need to make use of that more actually in other builds. And then just adding some, you know, stereotypical tavern decorations. So the barrels from Horse Ranch really came handy for this in those faded swatches. Decided to also add a lantern as well to this area for a bit more of a mood, soft lighting. And then briefly into the interiors, I think we're just mapping out the stairwell here. Initially had it in the left corner, but it was looking very crowded with the bar and the sides of the bar, so decided to shift it over. I was struggling a bit with what railings to use, but I ended up going for the life and death swatch because I really loved that worn wood, and in turn that inspired me to change the wood flooring as well. I did actually think this, in hindsight, looks nicely with that fence, but I'm glad with the one we chose. Felt a bit more in keeping. Yeah, this one here, with the wallpaper as well. Just adding a archway here as well, so there's access to the bathroom. I initially forgot that we had that turret accessible, so I thought what better way to have than a bathroom. Here is the famous bar that I mentioned earlier. It's really pretty in game. It's got this waterfall animation. I did want to use the bar back, but it's absolutely massive, and I think you need I'm pretty sure you need a taller wall height, which is a shame. But I may do. I like this little bump in for a private table space. But yeah, I tried to use as much of the pack as possible. I think in a scenario where it works, this furniture is really pretty. Obviously, it's not very versatile. I mentioned that in my first Enchanted by Nature speed build. But yeah, definitely for something that's a little bit more magical, it really works. Adding a standard coat rack from the base game for the patrons. And I think, what are we doing here? We are adding, oh yeah, I went into the get together because I knew we had some bar items. So decided to add the darts and the foosball item, left it upstairs for safekeeping. And also these dividers, the amount of time it took me to figure out the correct swatch, because this looks a bit too rich and then the grey looked too light and grey. Once we actually get around to the final screenshots, you'll see they have completely changed again. Use the bar back from Horse Ranch, I think it was. I like the inflections of the word tones. It worked with the space and it fit nicely into the area, considering we were kind of stuck for space. Adding some more barrels, a bin. And then adding some detail to the walls. I did want to bring in, it was a big thing for me to bring in some ivy and some wall foliage. Doesn't really make sense in a realistic build, but for here, for something that's quite magical, I really enjoyed adding that extra detail to the wall, and it made it feel really cozy and very old. But I did have to make sure it didn't poke through too much into the upper flooring, which it did. So I had to keep an eye on. But I made sure to just litter this around the pub. Adding some of the new plants that we have. I think we pull out some of the little pots that we came with the pack. Oh, this are really pretty over the doorway, and I've also done it for the back door, but it's not usable. I had to take that out before I loaded the build up on the gallery because the Sims just refused to go through the door. I think it's just a routing issue, which is unfortunate because it looks really nice sprung across the door. but I always make sure I playtest my builds so you guys aren't with the case of downloading it and not being able to use it. Here's that little conversation nook, which I've added some foliage in. I thought that looked really nice there, actually. And just, you know, suspend belief that it's growing from the flooring and doesn't actually have any soil. Thought it was nice to climb it up the stairway as well. And in this area, I completely forgot that we had a fireplace. So I made sure to swap out the chairs that we had there for the fireplace. I initially used the wooden one in my first speed build and decided to use this mossy one instead, since I'd not had an opportunity to use it. And yeah, like I was saying, for the right kind of build, these items really work very well. And instead of a table and chairs, decided to add these armchairs, which again is an item I've not managed to use yet. Looks very Shrek-esque with a side table. And it's really nice when in gameplay when you have the fire on, it creates a really warm glow to the room. Also pulled out that rug as well. I've only used the one with the decorative pattern and not this kind of leaf pad one, because I don't know, I thought it looks a bit too cartoony, but I think in this build it looks okay. I think I'm just flitting around here, there and everywhere to figure out where to add detail. Adding a plant here. Also pulled out some bucks as well, just so it's a usable space. You can imagine gnomes and fairies of an eve will come and sit by the fire and read a novel. Also remembered we have the bookcase from the new pack as well, so I made sure to add that into the corner with the new book objects. I did want to use the tree one again, but it's so big. Need to make a build that just accommodates the tree bookshelf instead. Decided to add some lighting into this area. Swapped out the wall lights for this chandelier from Horse Ranch. It's a nice candle light. Made sure to manually turn down the brightness as well, so when it's dark, it's really moody and cozy. There's nothing better than a cozy pub in the countryside. Yeah, I just changed it down to kind of a warm yellow. And then I remembered we have little candles for the tables, not from the new pack, but I decided to swap out all the flowers we had because I figured we had so many in this interior anyway. And this creates a nice soft glow in gameplay. Adding a menu, all important menus. And then we had a blank wall here, so I did initially pull out some chalkboard menus, but I found that one from Cottage Living, which is really pretty with that candle. Such a nice object. So it's really appropriate for this area. I really enjoyed how this first floor came out, actually. It was all freestyle. I had no references to go from, but I really like how cozy and rich everything kind of looks. There's the second rug from the pack. I've used it in a different swatch than I've used before, and that green. It's a nice contrast to the lighter greens that we had in the interior. Into the beer garden. I do switch up some of the benches that we use actually once we get to the final tour, but you'll see that later. But I'm deciding between two different picnic tables. Thank God we actually have so many for the first time. I will compliment the Sims team. I use this one that has all the markings on it because it kind of looks worn and as if maybe the gnomes had damaged it or defaced it on their merriment. Adding some menus and candles, again to create some mood lighting. And just filling up the space really. Pulled out this plant that I've not managed to use. Put it in that complementary swatch to the ivy that's on the wall. And actually in gameplay, the planters themselves light up. It's kind of cool with some lighting. All feels very magical. But yeah, you can see there in the back wall I've added a bench, and we actually moved that to the blossom tree that we add later on outside. It's looking a bit swamped, this area, so... And I replaced that with some barrels, some beer barrels. Adding some more lighting so we're not completely in the dark. I always like to test it out in build mode, just to make sure I've got the right amount of light and it's not too overblown. Trying to find the perfect tree. Here's that blossom tree I was mentioning where we add the bench for a nice kind of seated moment. It's a very pretty tree actually. I think that would work in Henford for cottage living actually. And decided to use the same tree thrice, or maybe 4 times actually, and just maneuver it around so it doesn't cut into the half wall. And here I'm adding even more wall ivy. This would kind of make sense for an outdoor space, having all this overgrowth. But yeah, I just love how versatile these items are. And I'm happy with the amount we got with the pack, but it would be insane if we got a couple more different variations. Sometimes I find this is why I have to kind of manipulate the placement and make up my own shapes, because sometimes I find obviously it can look a bit too copy and paste, so it'd be cool to have some that looked to the left and the right and, you know, just waffling. Upstairs now we are making sense of the table and chair placement, and just create a nice little corner moment there. And the bane of my life, the ivy, which didn't even work in gameplay, is sticking through the ceiling, so I just made sure to pull that down. You can see that I'm adding a 4-seater table, but we actually swapped that out for a sofa and 2 chairs. So it was looking a bit too samey, so it was quite a nice spot to have a conversation area. So yeah, just pretty much mirroring what we'd done downstairs. When I came back to refine this upstairs part, I've added plenty more wall decorations and details, just so it looked a bit more lived in. This is the turret bathroom. I thought it was kind of a clever space to have it. It's quite a big room for a single basin and toilet, but that was kind of quirky. Wish we had a loo roll that came with the pack, but unfortunately we do not, so just use the base game one. But I've not had an opportunity to use that toilet yet. Don't know if you guys have been playing the timed event, but I think I'm just 1 away from getting the outhouse, which would be so fun. That's really Shrek core, so definitely want to get that in my game so I can create something that's in that ilk. But yeah, I just tried to make sense of this space by adding a few more plants. So it's quite nice actually having a floor window, letting that nice stream of light. Just changing up the swatches here. I love the variation we got with those items. More of that please, Sims team. And just adding some lighting, so you're not going to the loo in the dark, in the pitch black. It would be nice to have some more chandeliers with the Enchanted by Nature pack. I know we got the kind of leaf ones, but I kind of think they look a bit modern in a way. Not that I would put it in a modern build, but I don't think it really goes with all the items that we have. It'd be nice to have things that are a bit more wooden inspired. I actually switched this out later for a 4-seater instead of a 2-seater. And again, making sure the ivy does not stick through the top. All about the details. Here I am just adding some initial wall decoration, which, as I mentioned, I went back and refined. It's looking a bit bare upstairs once I finish with it, but you know, it's all about revising a build once you can come back to it with fresh eyes. But yeah, here definitely looked a bit too open of a space just to have a 4-seater. So it's a nice opportunity to use the new sofa and chairs as well. I used it in a swatch that I've not experimented with yet, which is coming up to it there. Yeah, it's like a kind of creamy off cream with green accents and a nice pop of red. And a coffee table as well, of course. Imagine this pub is very bustling, very loud in the evening. Very cozy and warm. Friends, I'm going to leave you with the final tour very soon. If you do like this video, please give it a like and subscribe, and I'll leave all my socials in the description box below. I'll also upload this to the gallery under Curio Sims. You should be able to download it with ease, but comment below if you have any troubles. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.